So I have stated that the 12D cosmology has started as a quest for an answer to the theory of everything. And that I came up with the idea that if you want to formulate a theory of everything, you need to start with the notion that there is at least something, and that is formulated by the number one or a point or a dot. And in my second video, I stated that a dot is embedded in nothingness, and that nothingness represents yin, and that point, that dot, represents yang. So the male and the female is at the very beginning of creation, so to speak. And today I want to define the word definition, the word dimension, I'm sorry. And today I want to define the word dimension. When I looked up the word dimension on Wikipedia, there were several. If you use it in that sort of context, if you use it in that sort of context, as you might know, I have autism, and I hate it when things are not defined. So when I first came up with the idea that a theory of everything should start with a point, and that point is one, all of a sudden I was projected again in the classroom somewhere in the late 80s, when we learned about the equation x to the power of 0 equals 1. And when I asked my teacher, how come? It didn't feel logical to me. So I wanted an explanation. And she said that we need to accept that as it was an axiom. And that was really disappointing to me, because x to the power of 0 equals 1 has a sort of mystery, magic, I don't know. It's like nothing equals something. There has to be a meaning behind that, of course. And when I came to the idea that a theory of everything can only start with a point, with the confirmation that at least there is something, and that confirmation is notated in the number one or a point, a dot, then I understood what it meant, because a dot is a 0 dimension space. It's not the exact word, but yes, it's 0 dimension space. It's a dimension with 0 dimensions. And if you have a point and you project any number into it, then the result is that the point is. So the result is 1. So the result is a confirmation of the fact that the point exists. And that is notated by 1. So x, any value projected in dimension 0, equals a confirmation that dimension 0 exists. That's the meaning of x to the power of 0 equals 1. And that really felt like an epiphany. And I thought it's so beautiful. And as years went on, I saw that equation x to the power 0 equals 1 as the birth channel of math. And if you see it geometrically, it's the birth channel of creation. And the beauty of it is that in that number one holds an infinity. So the yang number one, that is very precisely and exactly defined, still holds an infinite potential in itself, because any number, any value, any possible x that you can come up with, projected into dimension 0 equals 1. So although infinity, nothingness, is an a property of yin, of the infinite, it is also held by yang, the finite. I think that's so beautiful. So in the most fundamental, in the most fundamental part of math, of geometry, yin and yang, male and female, are already having sort of intercourse. So that idea is also the birth of fertility. And of course, fertility is a very, very important concept in life. If you consider a theory of everything, and it is paramount that life and consciousness is a part of it, then fertility is a very big deal. And it is already there in that equation, x to the power of 0 equals 1, the birth channel of math, as I like to call it. So, and that is not the first dimension, of course, but the zeroth dimension, the definition of dimension. And what is then my my definition of dimension, or anyway, the definition of a dimension that I use for the 12D cosmology? That is, a dimension is a unique and infinite set of values. And since dimension 0, meaning non-existing, since dimension 0 is 1, dimension 0 is sort of is not a dimension, it's more like the definition of what a dimension is, and it holds infinity in some sort of deeper layer through the equation of x to the power of 0 equals 1. And that definition, and I only understood that because of my interactions with ChatGPT, that definition directly excludes the extra definitions that are defined by snare theory and M theory, because these theories define more than three-dimensional, more than three spatial dimensions. And that is literally impossible if you use that exact definition of a dimension. So, snare theory and M theory, they use spatial dimensions, I guess 6 spatial dimensions, if I'm correct. 6 extra spatial dimensions that are so small that they are smaller than the 3 basic dimensions. But if we're talking infinity, then we have to be consequent. I mean, there is, in terms of infinity, there is no reason at all why in the volume of, for instance, an atom, there could not exist a complete universe. Because there is infinity. The smallest, in our terms, the smallest volume is as infinite as billions and trillions of light years. It's all infinite. So infinity is outwards, but it's also inwards. Does make so much difference. The only difference or the only thing to consider is our own dimensions. We think that the size of an atom is very small because we are so much bigger than that. But if we were a galaxy the size of an atom, then there's so much more detail inside. So there's no limits, not even to the smallest, to the micro sizes. So an atom is, by definition, not necessarily bigger than a galaxy. They're both infinite in terms of space. So, and in that sense, the definition of dimension is something that I use very strictly. And a definition and a dimension is an infinite set of values. For instance, length is a value, it's a parameter. Length, broad, depth. These are parameters, these are values, and these are unique sets. And that's how I define. A dimension, and how I will consistently define it through this whole 12D cosmos. And to give a little hint, they often say we live in 3D space, and the space is three-dimensional, of course. And space has 3 dimensions, 3 parameters, the X, Y, and the Z axis. But the color of an object is also a parameter, and that is not defined by these 3 spatial axes. So with 3 dimensions, we have completely empty space. There is no time, there is no energy, there is no matter in a 3D space. We need more dimensions to define that, and that will come up later. Thank you for listening. See you soon.